Hey, welcome back to the channel, my fellow weather junkies. I'm your host, meteorologist Greg Majeski, your personal weatherman here, bringing you the weather without all that social media hype here on your Monday, January 20th, 2025. Let's go ahead and take a look at what we're tracking here for today because it's definitely a very frigid week out there for sure. We'll take a look at some of those morning lows this morning. They're quite low, quite bitter. And then we're also going to talk about this historical and unusual winter storm that's coming our way. We're talking one that's going to track right along the Gulf Coast. Snow's dropping from Texas all the way over to the Florida Panhandle. Very unusual and a very historic event to say the least. And then finally, we're going to take a look at a potential pattern shift coming our way. Finally going to get a break. We'll take a look at that as well. Now, before we get into all this, I first want to say thank you to all the new subscribers here on the channel. And if you haven't not yet decided to subscribe like that 60% of you out there, please do so at this time. Hit that subscribe button. It'd be an honor and a privilege to be one of your weather sources here in the YouTube universe. All right, let's go ahead and take a look at what we're seeing here on the satellite imagery. We've got just plenty of cold here across a big part of the country. Got some snows back here across portions of Colorado and into portions of Kansas. And some of this energy is going to transfer. We're going to get a new area of low pressure. It's going to form right along the Gulf Coast. That's going to move off this way. And that's what's going to bring us our winter event across the deep, deep south. Now out here on the West Coast, still looking quiet here for the moment. It looks like that's going to hold for most of this week. But as we go into this upcoming weekend, we may finally start to get some changes and bring some precipitation down toward the folks there in Southern California. Now, as we take a look at what's going on with our watches and warnings, you think this is unusual? We have winter storm watches and warnings stretching from the Carolina coast all the way back into Texas. This is something you do not see very often with that very cold air mass that's in place. Now, some areas here across the deep south, I know some of these watches are getting up to metro Atlanta. I think the precipitation for the most part is going to stay down to the south, so I don't think Atlanta is going to be getting in on this. Again, we got some of the warnings going up here through portions of West Virginia here for this morning as well. So again, this is a big news story here as far as what's coming our way. Also notice we've got the windy conditions here out in Southern California still and the red flag warning. So again, the fire hazard continues to run very high there in Southern California. Let's look at the morning temperatures right now. We're talking bitterly cold. How about minus 24, minus 35 at International Falls? Ow, that's brutal right there. 0 in Chicago right now. So very cold air all the way down to the Gulf Coast. We got upper 20s right along the Gulf Coast here as we wait for this surface low to develop. And we got some pretty good rains there falling down there into South Florida here for this morning. In fact, we'll take a look at that radar down there as we've seen the rains here coming from West Palm Beach down toward Fort Lauderdale, back toward Key West. So kind of a rainy, damp day here across South Florida for today. Now, the good news with the weather pattern that we're currently sitting in is we're not going to have to worry so much about severe weather. That's for sure. That's not going to really be in the cards here, as in fact, we're not expecting any thunderstorm development here really for the next 3 days. Nor am I expecting any big problems here from any kind of localized flooding events, obviously, because we're not going to have any thunderstorms. Now, as far as the hazard outlook is concerned, this will continue for most of this week. Obviously, we're going to be watching the winter weather potential here across the deep south as we're going to be dealing with that winter event that's going to start tomorrow, and then it's going to start to move on as we go toward Wednesday. So we're talking about that zone right through there. And I know the Climate Center likes to paint a very broad brush there when it comes to their heavy snow projection. I do not see it getting up as far north as Atlanta, Georgia. That's not going to happen, okay? That is not going to happen with this specific event. So let's go ahead and talk about the high resolution model. We're going to be looking at the short range model. It's going to take us through the next 40 hours here as we're going to watch this storm system develop. You're going to be paying attention to what happens right down in here as this storm system develops. And obviously, we got a little bit of lake effect snows going there across the Great Lakes as well. So here we go as we're going throughout the day today. Pretty quiet. We'll watch that moisture there increasing right along the Texas Gulf Coast as we go into the evening hours. And then as we go into the overnight hours, we're going to start seeing some of that pink start to show up in here. Notice that across Louisiana. Going to really kind of weten that atmosphere up a little bit. And that's going to transition to all snow here as we go into tomorrow morning. So by the time we go into it tomorrow morning, you notice it, boom, it goes all over to all snow by 8 o'clock in the morning. So we're seeing snows getting here pretty close to Houston, Texas, and going in across a big chunk of Louisiana. I mean, we're talking about accumulating snows even getting into New Orleans. That's something you just do not see. And this is going to track right along the Gulf Coast. Now, the high resolution model really kind of isolates this down towards South Mississippi and into southern Alabama and South Georgia. So it doesn't do a whole lot there. We're talking about Mobile, Biloxi, Pensacola getting in on this, and then a freezing rain event there going into the Big Bend area of Florida. And this will track in across areas of North Florida as well. And then the snow's moving over into Savannah as we go into your Tuesday night and into Wednesday morning. So that's what's looking like right there as the storm tracks right along the Gulf Coast, bringing a probably once in a lifetime type snow event for a lot of places there across the deep south. Let's go ahead and look at the jet stream pattern here. Again, this is all being driven by the fact that we've got this very cold Arctic air that's in place. We got this little disturbance that's kind of kicking on out in this area, and that's going to track right along the Gulf Coast with this and bring in that to a quick shot of snow and some very unusual places heading into your Tuesday and Wednesday as this begins to push off toward the east. Then the next thing we're going to watch for this weekend is we're going to watch the jet stream start doing a little bit of a backbend here. This piece of energy here on Friday. This is going to target into Southern California as a cutoff low feature, which is going to bring precipitation and rain here heading into this upcoming weekend. So here it comes. You see it kind of diving off and pitching off there, and that is some very good relief there. So it's going to bring colder temperatures as well as the chance of rain going into Sunday and Monday of this upcoming weekend. So that's some good news there for the folks there. And this is going to lead to an overall pattern change as we go into the long range here. As that cutoff low gets there, the northern and southern jet streams are going to become non-phase. So they got the main jet here, and here goes the subtropical here. And what that's going to allow is the pattern become a little more zonal, I feel, and that's going to allow the temperatures to modify across a big part of the country as we go into the early portion of February. So as I take this all the way out, this looks more like a zonal flow here. We've got a jet stream in here, but you're not really tapping a lot of this cold air up here. There'll still be cold air across the northern tier a little bit, but areas like here in the deep south, they're clearly going to warm up here a little bit as we see this pattern change take place as we head into the month of February. So let's go ahead and track the storm system here. There's a couple things I want you to point out with this pattern change. Notice here on the beginning of this part, I'm just kind of highlighting where that freezing line is currently sitting here across the country. So we got, again, a piece of the polar vortex sitting in here. We got all this cold air in place here to begin this model run. And then I'm going to highlight where that 540 freezing line is toward the end of the model run, just to kind of illustrate the pattern change that is coming our way here. So let's go ahead and watch this again. We're going to watch this winter weather here coming on through. Now, the European is kicking the snow, a little bit lighter snow up a little bit further north, getting close to Atlanta here and going into the Carolinas, but it's very, very light. It's this darker blue that you got to watch here for that precipitation where it's going to be a little bit heavier there along the Gulf Coast. So this is going to move on off toward the east. There will be some period of some freezing rain here right along the northern portions of Florida. Very unusual, getting very close to Jacksonville as well as we go into your Tuesday night and into Wednesday morning. Then this moves on off here. So looks like we just stay pretty much cold here as we go into this upcoming week. Going in toward Friday morning, you still got the cold air still very much in place here across the deep south and here across a big part of the country. It starts to modify a little bit here across the Great Lakes a little bit, but still quite nippy, quite cold. And then we're going to watch for that upper level feature. Again, we were talking about this energy that's going to be diving down here across the west. It's going to dive into the south portion of California, and that's going to be bringing in that chance of rain here. So watch that upper level feature. There it goes. Going in towards Sunday morning, we're seeing some welcome rain, colder temperatures there for Los Angeles. So some good news there. My daughter lives out there. Hopefully she will get some improved air quality out there as well as this feature comes in, because when you get that kind of rain after you're dealing with fires and stuff like that, it really gives the atmosphere a good bath to get some good rain in there. So hopefully it'll kind of clear that out a little bit. And that little feature is going to move on off. And as it does so, we'll see the pattern definitely begin to change here as we go toward Wednesday of next week. Notice that the 540 freezing line is now shifted way up here toward the north. So we're seeing a big change here as we head toward the middle of next week. And it looks like that's going to continue right into the end of the month. So things will kind of work on out as we'll watch that energy from that southwest feature. This is what's left of it here, that upper level low here, tracking some rains across Texas. Again, we finally start to see an onshore flow out here across the Pacific Northwest, so we'll start to see the rains return out there. That's just, again, an indication of the pattern change coming our way. You notice that on Wednesday next week, we're quiet, but going into Thursday, we're finally getting the West Coast entourage to kind of come back on here with some precipitation coming back on in about 9-10 days. So that is definitely a good indication of the pattern change taking place, and that'll continue right into February. Get some wet and rainy weather here as we head toward the 2nd and 3rd of February, and that'll continue to the north. But notice here at the end of the model run, again, kind of illustrating where the freezing line is up in here. Definitely confined to the northern tier of states, and we're going to see a nice pattern shift take place as we head deeper and finish up the month of January going into February. Now, that's not to say we're not done with winter yet, especially the way the polar vortex has been behaving. I do suspect we're going to get another couple of shots coming down here going into February. All right, let's go ahead and take a look at the precipitation here. We'll look at the 10-day total here first. We're going to take this all the way out here for the next 10 days out till about 240. There we go, right about there. And obviously, we're going to have some pretty lake effect snows here for that period, obviously with the cold weather here, especially this week. And then, of course, some of this is going to be snow and as well as rain here over the next 10 days. So we're going to focus in here on the snow totals. I'm going to bounce between a few models here for you to kind of see here across the southeast. So we're first going to take a look at the European model here. Again, we're looking at generally higher amounts, maybe 4 to 5 inches showing here, and a pretty good 3-inch path here coming in here across the Florida Panhandle, parts of Alabama and along the Gulf Coast. So that is the European model. Let's do a little comparison here with some other models here a little bit as we go through this upcoming week. So let's go ahead and bounce around here. I'm going to go ahead and switch this over to another model. Let's go look at the American GFS model. Seems to be pretty reasonable, maybe a little more robust here. I see a couple 7-inch snowfalls there across portions of Louisiana with this, and even a little bit higher here across the Florida Panhandle a little bit with the American GFS. So it's a little more heavy with the precipitation. And let's go ahead and switch on over to the Canadian model. Let's take a look at that one as well. Not as much off toward the east for sure. Not seeing as much around in here, but definitely heavier here across Texas. Seeing some 8-inch totals in there as well on the Canadian. Canadian tends to be a little heavier with the precipitation totals there on that. But the one thing I do see with the Canadian here is it does not get any of the snow in here across North Georgia. That's the area where I live and kind of watch. So I don't think we're going to get a whole lot in where I live for sure out of this particular system. So let's go ahead and track the cold air. We're going to track the pattern shift that's coming our way. And you can illustrate this with your temperature anomaly map. When you see those purples and stuff like that, purples and greens and blues, you know you're dealing with a very cold weather pattern. Obviously the reds and oranges, that's what you were looking for, that milder weather. And that's going to stay in place here all this week, okay? A lot of the country staying below normal here for Tuesday. We start seeing modification there a little bit there across the high plains as we head toward Wednesday, just a little bit there, but definitely very cold here across the deep south going into Wednesday and Thursday. And looks like that pretty much holds for the rest of this week. But then we start seeing some things changing here. Obviously seeing a little more above normal temperatures here moving into across the Great Lakes here going into this upcoming Saturday and Sunday. But you really kind of see it as we go and later in the week. So got another shot coming down here toward the 28th here for a big part of the country. Just a little bit above normal here across the high plains, but seeing it kind of chilly there across the eastern half of the United States. But as we go beyond, say, next week, this is day 8, going into 9 and 10, we definitely see things begin to warm up here. Seeing a lot more red on this map as we go toward the 31st. We still got one little cold shot here across New England on the 31st. But look at this warmer weather out here toward the west. That's going to move on in here as we go toward the 2nd and the 3rd. So look by the time I head toward the 1st. Wow, look at that. Big part of the country here looking at temperatures going above normal. Haven't seen a whole lot of that for the last couple of weeks here. That's some good news. And I think that'll kind of linger right into the 2nd and 3rd here a little bit, although we are getting indication toward the tail end of this. We're getting a little bit of an Arctic outbreak here out toward the west. Obviously, we got a cold front right there. Very mild here across the east as we head toward the 3rd. All right, so that's a long-range projection. We're still looking at anything going beyond 7 days, anything from day 8 to 15. You're kind of just looking at forecast trends. But the forecast trend does appear that we are heading toward a pattern change. And as long as we've been locked into this one, it does make sense that I think we should begin to see some changes as we head toward the month of February. So let's go ahead and wrap this up and see what the Climate Center says. Let's see if it's kind of backing what we're seeing here with the forecast models here as we're looking out from the 25th to the 29th. So that's after the cold air has kind of moved on out here, but near normal, below normal out here in the west for that period. And then as we flip the calendar going into the 2nd, look at that. Got finally some above normal temperatures on up in the plains and into the southeast. Remember, I was showing that one big cold blast there across New England there showing up there. And below normal out in the west, obviously, we get a little more precipitation going here. Let's look at the rain side of this as we start to change this a little bit. So above normal precipitation here in the southwest has been very dry out here and across the deep south here. Below normal still out on the west coast. It's going from the 25th to the 29th. Let's go ahead and take this out one more here. Still showing below normal out here in the west. So I know we start seeing the precipitation coming on up here on the northwest here going into day 8 and 9. We'll see if that trend continues on the forecast maps and see if this changes a little bit to later this afternoon when this updates. But it does appear that we start to see a little more of a progressive weather pattern. get opportunities for more rains, especially here across the eastern half of the United States, as we get ready to flip the calendar and go into February, because it does appear that January is probably going to go down as one of our coldest Januaries we've had across the continental United States in quite a few years. I'm definitely going to say it's probably going to be one of the top 5 coldest of so far of the 21st century, going back to 2000, that's for sure. So we're going to watch this winter event going into tomorrow. So please, I'll keep a watchful eye on that. We'll have another update and kind of watch how this goes for tomorrow. But the good news is we're going to get rid of the cold weather, and then we're going to finally get some relief out in Southern California where they need it. That's the good news from this update. All right, hey, if you haven't yet subscribed to the channel, please do so at this time. It'd be an honor and a privilege to be one of your weather sources. God knows there's enough of them out there in the YouTube universe. And, I am a meteorologist. I'm not just a weather enthusiast. And I try to give it to you even keel and kind of manage your expectations. People like to take weather as a little personal, if you disagree with what the weatherman says. But hey, that's okay. I never take it personal. That's okay. All right, that's your update for now. You guys take it easy. Be good, stay safe, and we'll see you next time. Bye, guys.